He hired her as a fake fiancée for a single gala, but one gentle promise that night shattered all their boundaries. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The night rain had turned the city into a blur of reflections, headlights melting into puddles, pavement shining like wet glass. When Lila Hart pushed the bakery's front door closed and flipped the sign to closed. Her hands were trembling, not from the cold, but from the hospital bill folded in her apron pocket. $2,000 due by Monday, and she had barely $50 left after rent. The ovens were off, the display case empty, and yet she stayed, wiping down the same counter twice, as if scrubbing could erase the dread crawling under her skin. Outside, thunder rolled. The bell above the door chimed. She spun around. A tall man stepped in, rain dripping from his charcoal coat, the kind of coat that cost more than her monthly rent. His presence filled the tiny bakery instantly, not loud, not dramatic, just commanding, like he was used to rooms bending around him. Evan Wolf. She didn't know his name yet, but she felt the weight of it the moment his eyes met hers. Sharp, focused, like he came here with a purpose carved in stone. "We're closed, sir," she said, trying to sound firm, failing slightly. Her voice wobbled. His didn't. "I'm not here for pastries." He stepped forward, water pooling beneath his shoes. "I'm here for you." Lila blinked. "Excuse me." Evan's jaw tightened once, as if he hated repeating himself but had no choice tonight. "My company is hosting a gala tomorrow. I need a fiancée for one night." The words hit her like a wrong note chord. A beat of silence. He continued, tone clipped. "It is a business arrangement. You show up as my partner. Smile. Stand beside me. Leave when it's done. Nothing more." Her heart hammered so hard she heard it in her ears. "Why me?" "Because," Evan said, eyes scanning the room like he was searching for something invisible. "You're ordinary enough not to attract the wolves, and honest enough not to betray me." She didn't know whether to take offense or feel strangely seen. Rain slammed against the windows, echoing the war inside her chest. "I don't do this kind of thing," she whispered. "I'm not some rented girlfriend." Evan exhaled slowly, then reached into his coat and placed an envelope on the counter. It thudded softly, too softly for how heavy it felt. She opened it. Money. More than she'd ever held at once. Enough to pay the hospital bill twice. Enough to save her mother. Her throat tightened. He watched her carefully, like every flicker in her expression mattered. "I need someone who won't create chaos at the gala," he said. "You need help. This solves both our problems." Another crack of thunder. Another wave of fear. But under it all, a quiet truth. She was out of options. And this stranger with storm-gray eyes knew it. Lila set the envelope down and forced her voice to steady. "What's the catch?" Evan's answer was immediate. "No love. No entanglement. No misunderstandings." Then, softening just a fraction, just enough for her to wonder what lived behind the armor, he added, "You'll be safe with me. That's my promise." A gentle promise spoken like a vow he didn't intend to break. A promise that, without either of them knowing, would unravel everything. Lila did not sleep that night. The envelope sat on her nightstand like a glowing warning sign, daring her to touch it again. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Evan Wolf's voice repeating that promise he should not have made so gently. By morning, her stomach was in knots. She kept replaying the moment he stepped through her bakery door, soaking wet, speaking like a man used to being obeyed but entirely out of his depth when it came to people like her. And now she was supposed to be his fiancée, even a fake one. At exactly 9 o'clock, a black car rolled up to her apartment building, the kind of car she usually only saw passing through the richer neighborhoods. The driver stepped out and opened the back door. "Miss Hart, Mr. Wolf is expecting you." She swallowed hard and slid inside. Evan sat waiting, polished and composed in a tailored charcoal suit. His hair was still slightly damp from the morning fog, and the faint shadow of sleeplessness under his eyes made him look almost human, almost reachable. "Good morning," he said. No smile, just acknowledgement. She nodded. "Morning." The car pulled smoothly into traffic. The The silence pressed between them like a third passenger. Finally, Evan cleared his throat. "There is a schedule for today." He handed her a slim folder. Inside was a list of etiquette notes, flashcards with names and faces of key investors, and a short script of phrases she might need. She stared at it, stunned. "You prepared all of this overnight?" "I prepare for everything," he said simply. "It prevents mistakes." "And choosing a stranger from a bakery is not a mistake?" she asked quietly. His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he would ignore her. Instead, he turned to the window. It was a calculated risk. Lila closed the folder gently. "Well, I hope your calculations included the fact that I cannot walk in heels." His face flickered, just a small crack in the granite expression, but enough for her to catch it. "We will handle that." They arrived at a private styling suite inside a downtown high-rise. The moment she stepped in, warm lighting and racks of gowns surrounded her like a different universe. A stylist bustled over. "Mr. Wolf, this is perfect. We will make her stunning." Lila wanted to hide. Evan looked at her, really looked. "Choose anything you want," he said. "Do not worry about the price." She hesitated. "I have never worn anything like this." "Then tonight is the first," he replied. The next hour blurred into a montage of soft fabrics, sparkling jewelry, and hands adjusting her posture. She tried on dress after dress while Evan stood at a respectful distance, arms crossed, evaluating without expression. But whenever she caught him glancing too long, he looked away, as if he did not want to be caught caring. "This one," the stylist announced at last. A midnight blue gown, simple but breathtaking, the color making her eyes brighter. Evan nodded once. Yes. Just that one word, but it held a strange weight, like approval he rarely gave. When she stepped out of the dressing room fully styled, he seemed momentarily unable to speak. The silence stretched until he finally cleared his throat. "We should go. There is rehearsal at the venue." His voice was steady, but something in his eyes had shifted, like the ground beneath him moved without his permission. As they walked back to the car, Lila asked softly, "Why do you need a fiancé for this gala, Evan?" "The real reason." He paused at the car door, rain beginning to fall around them again. "Because," he said, voice low, "some people only show their true intentions when they believe you have someone to protect." A chill ran down her spine. She opened her mouth to ask more, but he gestured to the car. "We will talk later. Tonight, we prepare." A single raindrop rolled down her cheek as she stepped inside, and she wondered if she had just stepped into far more than a one-night contract. The rehearsal venue was a grand ballroom inside a luxury hotel, its chandeliers glowing like suspended stars. Lila stepped inside and felt her breath catch. Everything looked too polished, too magnificent, too far from the world she belonged to. She followed Evan, who walked with a quiet, focused determination, the kind of stride that made people part like waves around him. Several staff members greeted him with nods that were almost bows. Lila stayed close behind, unsure where she fit in this world of velvet ropes and gold-trimmed marble. A coordinator approached, tablet in hand. "Mr. Wolf, welcome. And this must be Miss Hart." Lila froze for half a second at the sound of her new name, the one she had to answer to tonight. Evan spoke before she could stumble. "Yes, she is with me." The coordinator led them through the ballroom, explaining the layout, the introduction order, and the investor table where they would be seated. Lila listened carefully, trying to hold every detail in her mind. Evan noticed. "If you forget something, follow my lead," he murmured. "Just stay beside me." His voice was steady but not cold, more like an anchor thrown into rising waves. She nodded. "I can do that." They practiced walking in together, hand in hand. The first time she slipped slightly on the polished floor. Evan caught her by the waist without hesitation. Their eyes met, his grip firm but gentle, and something in the air shifted. For a moment, she forgot the lights, the staff, the rehearsal. She only felt the warmth of his hand and the strange certainty that he would not let her fall. He released her quickly, clearing his throat. "We should try that again." They practiced until her steps matched his, until her spine straightened naturally, until her heartbeat no longer tried to leap out of her chest. As they finished, the ballroom doors opened and a woman walked in. Elegant, sharp, dressed in a pearl-white suit that probably cost more than Lila's yearly income. Miranda Hale. Even without an introduction, Lila sensed trouble. Miranda's eyes swept the room before landing on Evan with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Evan, I did not know you were bringing someone. Her gaze slid to Lila with slow, deliberate judgment. And who is this? Evan placed a hand lightly on Lila's back, a gesture that looked natural but carried intention. This is Lila Hart, my fiancée. Miranda's brows lifted just a fraction, enough to say she did not believe a single word. Oh, how sudden. Lila forced a polite smile. Nice to meet you. Miranda stepped closer, her heels clicking like punctuation marks. Tell me, Lila, how did you two meet? Lila opened her mouth, panic flashing like white noise. Evan cut in smoothly. That story is for the gala. We should not spoil it. Miranda's eyes narrowed. She leaned slightly toward Lila, lowering her voice. I hope you know what you are getting into, dear. Then she turned and walked off, her perfume lingering like a warning. Lila let out a slow breath when she was gone. She hates me, she whispered. She hates everyone, Evan replied. Do not take it personally. Why? Lila asked softly. Why does she care who you bring? Evan's stare hardened, like a door closing. She has interests in my company. Bringing a fiancé complicates her plans. Lila felt the weight of that answer settle in her stomach. Whatever she had stepped into was deeper than she imagined. Later, after rehearsal, they returned to the car. The city lights blurred past the window as Lila spoke quietly. I do not want to mess this up for you. Evan looked at her, his expression unreadable but softer than before. You will not. You listen. You adapt. That matters more than experience. She held the midnight blue skirt of her dress, smoothing fabric that was not hers in a life that was not hers. This is all so strange, she murmured. Yesterday I was baking croissants. Today I am pretending to be someone important. Evan's voice dropped, low and sincere. You are important. At least tonight, you have to be. The words hit her harder than she expected because he said them without hesitation. The car slowed as they approached her place. Before she stepped out, Evan spoke again, softer than she had ever heard him. Lila, tomorrow night is dangerous in ways you cannot see. Stay close to me, no matter what anyone says. The warning wrapped around her like a chill. She nodded silently, the weight of his words following her as she stepped into the dim hallway of her apartment building. Tonight, she thought it was just an act. But something in Evan's voice told her tomorrow would not be pretend at all. The day of the gala arrived with a heaviness that sat on Lila's chest from the moment she opened her eyes. She barely tasted breakfast, her thoughts tangled in Evan's warning. Stay close to me, no matter what anyone says. When evening came, a sleek black car waited for her downstairs. She stepped inside wearing the midnight blue gown, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to adjust the delicate fabric. Evan was already in the car, dressed in a black tuxedo that made him look like he had stepped straight out of a magazine cover. But his eyes, sharp and quietly storming, softened the moment they landed on her. For a heartbeat, he seemed to forget how to breathe. You look, he stopped, swallowed, then finished, perfect. Heat rushed to her cheeks. I hope I do not ruin your big night, she said softly. You will not, he replied, his voice steady. Tonight, you stay beside me. I will handle everything else. The car pulled into the circular driveway of the Grand Crest Hotel, where cameras flashed in rapid bursts like lightning. Guests stepped out of luxury cars in glittering gowns and tailored suits. The air buzzed with reporters, security guards, and the high-pressure electricity of wealth. As the driver opened their door, Lila felt her heart hammering wildly. Evan extended his hand. She stared at it for a second. Then she placed her hand in his, and the world immediately steadied. They stepped onto the carpet, the crowd's attention locking onto them instantly. A few flashes went off in their direction. Lila felt her knees wobble, but Evan's grip tightened, grounding her. A reporter called out, Mr. Wolf, congratulations on the engagement. When is the wedding? Lila stiffened. Evan leaned slightly toward her, just enough that only she could hear. Smile, he murmured. She did, and somehow it felt real. Inside the ballroom, golden lights shimmered against crystal glasses. Music drifted through the air, soft and elegant. Guests turned to look, curiosity flashing in their expressions as they saw Evan Wolf with a woman none of them recognized. Whispering began. Evan ignored all of it. He led Lila toward the investor table, placing a steadying hand on her back, guiding her with the same firm confidence he used in business meetings. Miranda Hale approached before they could sit, her smile sharp as a polished blade. Well, Lila Hart. You clean up nicely. The words carried sweetness, but her eyes were cold. Lila held her own smile. Thank you. Miranda's gaze slid to Evan. You certainly wasted no time. An engagement? Already. Evan's jaw tightened. Do you need something, Miranda? Just wondering, Miranda said, stepping closer to Lila. If she understands the stakes. This is not a charity event for beginners. One wrong word, one wrong gesture, and investors get nervous. Lila felt her stomach twist, but before she could reply, Evan stepped forward, subtly placing himself between them. She is with me. That is all they need to know. Miranda raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Then she leaned in, whispering to Lila. Careful, dear. The higher the stage, the harder the fall. With that, she drifted away, her perfume trailing after her like a cold warning. Lila exhaled shakily. Evan turned to her, voice low. Do not listen to her. She wants control, and she hates anything she cannot predict. Including me, Lila whispered. Evan's expression softened just a little. Especially you. Dinner began, and Lila followed every cue Evan gave her. When to smile, when to nod, when to let him answer. She listened carefully, adapting to conversations she barely understood about stocks, acquisitions, and board elections. But then it happened. One of the investors, a man with silver hair and a too-wide grin, leaned toward Lila. So, Miss Hart, he said, how exactly did you catch our dear Evan? He is not the type to fall easily. The table quieted. Evan stiffened. Lila felt heat crawl up her neck. She could lie. She could repeat the script. Or she could speak from the heart. She took a soft breath. I did not catch him, she said gently. I met a man who was carrying more weight than anyone could see. Someone who needed a partner for one night, but sat in front of me with honesty instead of arrogance. That was what surprised me. The table fell silent. The silver-haired investor blinked. Evan looked at her with something unreadable in his eyes, something warm, something shifting. Miranda watched from across the room, her jaw tightening. After dinner, as the music swelled and guests moved toward the dance floor, Evan stepped closer to Lila. You handled that perfectly. I just told the truth, she murmured. He looked at her for a long moment, something deep and unguarded flickering in his expression. Lila, he said softly, you need to stay close now. Miranda is moving. I can feel it. She swallowed. Moving how? Evan took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers as he led her toward the dance floor. Tonight, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Someone is going to try to expose us, and we cannot let them. Her pulse quickened. His grip tightened. The night was not even halfway through, but Lila already sensed the truth. This was no longer just a contract. It never had been. The music swelled into a slow, elegant rhythm, and the ballroom lights softened just enough to paint everyone in a warm glow. Evan guided Lila to the center of the floor, his hand firm at her waist, his expression controlled but tense in a way she had not seen before. As they began to dance, she felt his heartbeat under her palm, steady but heavy, like he was bracing himself for a storm only he could see. Evan, she whispered, barely moving her lips. What exactly is Miranda planning? His jaw shifted slightly as he led her through a turn. Miranda thrives on pressure. If she can make the board doubt me, she gains leverage. Exposing this engagement as fake would give her that leverage. Lila swallowed hard. So she will try to humiliate us. Yes, he said, voice low, and she will not hesitate. For a moment, the music faded into a distant hum. Lila felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had walked into this night thinking her role was simple. Show up, smile, leave. But now she was in the middle of a battlefield where every gesture mattered. A place where one misstep could cost him everything. She tightened her grip on his hand. Then I stay by your side. No matter what. He looked down at her, eyes dark and searching, and for the first time tonight, something in him eased. Thank you, he murmured. You do not know how rare that kind of loyalty is in this room. As the dance continued, guests glanced their way, some curious, some skeptical. Miranda watched from across the room with a predator's patience, swirling a glass of champagne in her hand. Evan noticed. She is waiting, he said quietly. For what? For a moment when you are alone, he replied. For a moment when she can break you without witnesses. Then she will not get one, Lila said. Not tonight. When the dance ended, applause rose around them. Evan kept her close as they walked off the floor, but just as they reached the edge of the crowd, A photographer appeared out of nowhere, camera flashing. "Mr. Wolf, Miss Hart," he said quickly, "one more photo. Rumor has it your engagement happened faster than most people expected. Care to comment?" Lila froze. Evan's arm tightened around her waist. "No comment," he said steadily. But then the photographer lowered his camera slightly and added, "Interesting. Because Miss Hale says she has documents that might prove otherwise. Something about the timing." Lila's breath caught. Evan's expression darkened like a storm cloud. "Who sent you to say that?" Evan asked. The photographer paled. I cannot say." "Then you can leave," Evan said sharply. The man quickly disappeared into the crowd. Lila exhaled shakily. "She is really going through with it." "She is accelerating her timeline," Evan said. "Which means she is desperate. And desperate people make mistakes." But before Lila could reply, Miranda herself appeared, smiling like a woman who had just solved a complicated puzzle. "Evan," she said sweetly, "I hear congratulations are in order." Evan's face remained unreadable. "Miranda." She tilted her head. "You know, it is funny. Engagements are usually celebrated with families involved, stories of how the couple met, shared memories. But with you two," her eyes glittered, "there seems to be nothing." Lila felt her pulse thudding in her ears. Evan stepped forward slightly, shielding her. "You do not know anything about us, do I not?" Miranda asked, lifting one perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Because earlier tonight, I found something very interesting. A record from the bakery. A security camera. It shows the exact moment you met." Lila's blood ran cold. Miranda continued, "And from what I can tell, it was not romantic. It was a business transaction, was it not?" Evan's breath caught. "You invaded her workplace?" "I investigated," Miranda corrected. "There is a difference." Lila stepped forward before she could overthink it. "Why are you doing this?" Miranda looked at her as if the answer was obvious. "Because Evan has something I want. And you are inconvenient." Lila's throat tightened, but she lifted her chin. "Then you must be afraid." Miranda's smile faltered. Just for a moment. Then she recovered. "Enjoy the evening," she said, voice cool as stone. "It will be your last as his fiancée." She turned and walked away. Evan let out a slow, controlled breath. "She is going to make her move," he said. "Soon." Lila's voice was barely a whisper. "What do we do?" He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers with a certainty that stunned her. "We stay together. And when she attacks, we do not run. We answer." He squeezed her hand gently. "Stay close, Lila. Everything changes tonight." And as she looked up into his eyes, she realized something terrifying. It already had. The moment Miranda disappeared into the crowd, the ballroom shifted. It was subtle, almost invisible to anyone not paying attention, but Lila felt it immediately, like the air had thickened. Conversations quieted when she and Evan passed, glances lingered a little too long, and whispers trailed behind them. Something was coming. Evan guided her toward a quieter corner near the tall windows overlooking the city. The night sky glowed with a mix of city lights and distant haze, but even that beauty could not loosen the knot in Lila's stomach. "She found security footage," Lila murmured. "She knows how we met." "Yes," Evan said, his voice low but steady. "But she does not have context. Just an image. And images can be interpreted in many ways." Lila turned to look at him. "Are you sure we can fix this?" Evan held her gaze, and for the first time all night, there was vulnerability in his eyes, something raw and unguarded. "I have built empires," he said softly, "but this, tonight, I cannot do without you." Her breath caught. He had spoken it like the truth, not strategy. Before she could respond, the ballroom lights dimmed slightly, and a hush fell across the room. A voice rang out from the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?" It was the gala host, stepping up to the microphone. Evan stiffened. "It is too early for speeches," he muttered. "She is moving faster than I thought." Lila felt her pulse quicken. The host continued, "Before we begin tonight's main program, we have a very special announcement requested by one of our distinguished board members." Lila felt cold rush up her spine. "Miranda." The host smiled. "Miss Miranda Hale, the stage is yours." Evan inhaled sharply. "Lila, stay right here." She grabbed his hand. "No, we stay together." "You said that." His eyes flashed with a mix of frustration and something like admiration. But he nodded. "Together then." Miranda walked onto the stage with the confidence of someone who already believed she had won. Her white suit stood out under the lights. She took the microphone, her smile wide, her voice syrup-sweet. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for gathering tonight. As many of you know, our dear Evan Wolf has shocked us all with the sudden announcement of his engagement. A ripple of murmurs spread across the crowd. Miranda continued, I think it is only fair that we celebrate such a moment with a little transparency. Lila's stomach dropped. Miranda gestured to the side of the stage. A screen lit up. Evan muttered under his breath. She did not. But she had. The screen showed a grainy security camera view of the bakery. Lila behind the counter. Evan stepping in, soaked from the rain. The moment he placed the envelope down. The moment she opened it. Gasps echoed across the ballroom. Miranda spoke over them. This is how their love story began. A business transaction. An envelope of money. Quite romantic, is it not? Lila felt like the room tilted. Her heart pounded in her ears. Evan's grip on her hand tightened. Miranda's voice sharpened. I believe our investors deserve honesty. Is this engagement real? Or is it manipulation, a stage performance to influence this board and its decisions? The crowd erupted into whispers, harsher now, sharper. Lila felt exposed under every stare. Evan stepped forward, ready to speak, but Lila held his arm. Let me, she whispered. Shock flashed in his eyes. Lila, this is not your fight. It is, she said softly. Because I walked into this with you. She slipped past him, her steps surprisingly steady. When she reached the edge of the stage, Miranda turned, delighted. Oh, how brave. Do you have something to add, Miss Hart? Or shall we let the footage speak for itself? Lila took a breath, feeling her chest tremble. But her voice, when it came, did not shake. Yes, she said. I do. The room quieted instantly. She stepped into the light. You want the truth? Here it is. I did not know Evan Wolf before that night. That part is true. He came into the bakery, and yes, he placed an envelope on the counter. She paused, scanning the room. But what you did not see, what this footage does not show, is the man who walked in that night was not a billionaire. He was someone carrying a burden so heavy I could feel it the moment he spoke. Someone who needed help, not admiration. Miranda scoffed. Touching, but irrelevant. Lila continued, stronger now. You also did not see that I turned him down at first. I said no. But the only reason I agreed was because my mother is in the hospital, and he offered a way for me to help her. More murmurs, but softer now, confused. So yes, Lila said, our engagement began as a contract. But that does not make it a lie. It makes it a choice. Two people helping each other when they had no one else. She looked directly at Miranda, and that is something you would never understand. The ballroom went silent. Miranda's smile cracked. Evan stepped up beside Lila, placing a hand gently at her back, his voice steady as steel. And for the record, he said loudly, I am the one who asked her, not the other way around. The room shifted again, this time, in their favor. Miranda's eyes darkened. She turned away sharply, realizing her attack had not landed the way she intended. Lila exhaled, her whole body trembling. Evan leaned down, whispering, You were incredible. She looked up at him, heart pounding. I told the truth. Evan shook his head softly. No, you saved us. And for the first time, that night, she saw fear leave his eyes. The ballroom did not return to normal after Lila's speech. If anything, the atmosphere sharpened, like the air before lightning strikes. People whispered, glancing between Miranda and the couple standing at the foot of the stage. Some expressions softened toward Lila, others toward Evan, but many remained uncertain, weighing what they had just heard. Evan stayed at Lila's side, his hand still resting lightly at her back, grounding her, shielding her. She could feel the tension running through him, a silent storm barely contained. Are you all right? He murmured. She nodded, though her heart was still pounding. I am, but she is not finished. Evan's eyes flicked toward Miranda, who was stepping down from the stage with stiff, clipped movements, her face tight with anger she could no longer conceal. No, he said quietly. She is not. Miranda moved directly toward a cluster of board members, gesturing quickly, her voice low but edged with fury. Lila watched, the dread in her stomach twisting tighter. She is trying to regroup, Lila whispered. Trying to spin it. Yes, Evan agreed. And she will try to convince them that you and I are manipulating the company for gain. Are you? Lila asked softly, a gentle challenge. He looked at her sharply. then slowly shook his head. I brought you because I needed someone real. Someone who would not use me. Her breath caught at the sincerity in his voice. Evan. But before she could say more, one of the board members, a tall man named Grant Ellison, approached them. His expression was unreadable. Evan, he said, offering a polite nod, then turning to Lila with a softer look. Miss Hart, that was a brave speech. Lila blinked, unsure if it was praise or subtle skepticism. Thank you. Grant glanced around them, lowering his voice. Miranda is telling everyone that this engagement was a ploy. She claims you fabricated this tonight for sympathy. Evan's jaw tightened. Of course she is. However, Grant continued, the way I see it, if it were fabricated, you both would have had a cleaner story prepared. The rawness of it, the imperfection, it felt real. Lila felt a wave of relief. Evan nodded once. Thank you for your fairness. Grant leaned closer. Just be careful. Miranda is calling for an emergency board vote tomorrow morning. She wants to challenge your authority. With that, he slipped away. Lila turned to Evan, panic rising. A vote. She is trying to remove me, Evan said quietly. If she can convince them that I am unfit or distracted, she will take control. Lila felt something fierce stir inside her. Then we cannot let her. Evan looked at her, truly looked, like he was trying to understand why she cared at all. Before he could speak, Miranda's voice cut across the room. Evan Wolf, she called sharply, striding toward them with the confidence of a woman who believed victory was inevitable. Since you refuse transparency, I suggest you explain something to your investors. Why choose a stranger as your fiancée? Why her? Evan stepped forward, but Lila caught his arm, shaking her head. She stepped closer to Miranda, her voice steady. Because I had nothing to gain from him. Miranda's lips curled. Everyone has something to gain. Money, influence, protection. Lila shook her head. Not me. I met a desperate man. He met a desperate woman. We helped each other. That is all. Miranda scoffed loudly. You expect people at this level to believe a fairy tale like that? Lila took a step closer, her voice soft but unwavering. No, I expect them to believe the truth. Something you stopped believing in a long time ago. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Miranda's face hardened, her composure splintering. You are out of your depth, she hissed. You do not belong in this world. Lila felt the sting, but she lifted her chin. Maybe not, but at least I do not tear people down to climb higher. Miranda stepped forward as if she might explode, but Evan moved between them, shielding Lila with a protective instinct that surprised even him. That is enough, he said, his voice cold as steel. If you want a battle, Miranda, take it to the boardroom. But leave her out of it. Miranda glared at him, then at Lila, her voice trembling with rage. Tomorrow morning, you lose everything. She spun and stormed away. The crowd parted around her, whispers rising. Lila's breath shook. Evan, what if she succeeds? Evan turned to her, his gaze intense. Then I lose everything except the one thing she can never take. What is that? She whispered. His answer was soft, almost a confession. You. Her heart stopped. For one impossible moment, everything else faded. The lights, the music, the people. Only his voice remained. And it terrified her how much she wanted to believe him. The ballroom had thinned out, but tension still clung to the air like static electricity. Conversations drifted in cautious whispers as investors gathered in small circles, each group clearly discussing the same thing. The emergency board vote, Miranda's attack, and whether Evan Wolf would survive it. Evan led Lila toward a quieter hallway outside the ballroom, away from the ears and eyes that wanted to dissect them. The soft glow of wall sconces spilled golden light across the marble floor, but even that warmth could not soften the weight settling between them. Lila finally whispered, Evan, if Miranda is calling a vote tomorrow morning, what does that mean for you? He exhaled slowly, loosening the tension in his shoulders, but not the tension in his voice. It means she thinks she has enough board members convinced to challenge my leadership. If she wins, she becomes acting chair, and she will have full control of the company. Lila felt her stomach twist. And if she gets that control, she will dismantle everything I have built, he said. Especially the foundation my mother started. Lila froze. The charity you told me about? Evan nodded. It is the only thing of hers I have left. Miranda wants to shut it down and redirect the funds into expansion projects. His voice lowered. My mother would be devastated. Lila touched his arm gently. Then we fight. We do not let her erase something that matters to you. Evan looked at her with an expression that startled her, as if her words broke through some wall he had spent years building. You speak like someone who has been at my side for years, he said softly. Not someone who signed a contract 2 days ago. Lila felt her chest tighten. Maybe because this stopped feeling like a contract the moment I saw how much all of this means to you. A shadow moved at the far end of the hallway. Evan looked up sharply. One of his advisors, Martin Langston, approached with an urgent expression. Evan, we have a problem. Evan straightened instantly. What now? Martin lowered his voice. Miranda has gathered 5 board members in the East Parlor room. She is trying to secure the majority vote tonight, not tomorrow. Evan's jaw clenched. She wants to blindside me. She is trying to convince them that your engagement is a manipulation tactic, Martin added. She is promising them shares in exchange for support. Lila felt anger burn hot in her chest. She is willing to bribe her way into control. She always has been, Martin said. She just never had an opportunity big enough until tonight. Evan ran a hand through his hair, his composure cracking slightly. If she gets 7 votes, she wins the challenge. I need to stop her. Lila stepped closer. Then take me with you. Evan turned to her in disbelief. Lila, this is not your fight. This is ruthless corporate warfare. These people do not care about feelings or truth. They do not care about anyone but themselves. Then they need to hear something real, Lila said strongly. They need to hear the truth from me. Evan shook his head. She will tear you apart. She already tried, Lila replied softly. And I am still standing. For a moment, Evan looked torn, caught between protecting her and realizing he could not win this battle without her. Then he nodded. Stay close to me, no matter what they say. They walked together toward the East Parlor room, their footsteps echoing across the polished floor. From behind the partially open door, Lila heard Miranda's voice ringing out sharply. He is compromised. He is reckless. And this engagement is proof that he cannot separate personal emotions from business decisions. A man replied, uncertain, but the girl seems genuine. And the footage does not prove manipulation. Miranda snapped. It proves desperation. That bakery girl is a liability. She will drag him down, and she will drag us with him. Evan stepped into the room. If you are going to speak about her, Miranda, at least wait until she is not standing right here. The board members gasped. Miranda's expression soured like spoiled wine. Evan, how bold of you to finally join us. Evan's voice was controlled. I see. You want to challenge my leadership, fine. But leave Lila out of your attacks. Miranda crossed her arms. She is the catalyst of the problem. She does not belong in this world. She is not qualified to stand beside a leader. Lila stepped forward before Evan could stop her. Leadership is not about standing beside people who look powerful. It is about protecting the people who cannot protect themselves. The room went silent. Lila met the eyes of each board member. Evan proposed to me because your world has become so cold and so suspicious that he could not trust anyone else. And tonight, I saw exactly why. Miranda scoffed. Do not romanticize this, dear. This is business. And that is the problem, Lila replied. You have forgotten that business involves people, lives, families, futures. Evan has not. Several board members exchanged uncertain glances. Lila continued. He wants to preserve the foundation his mother built. That is not manipulation. That is integrity. A soft murmur rippled across the group. Miranda's face twisted. Enough. This vote is happening tomorrow, whether you like it or not. Evan stepped forward. Then let it happen. But do it the right way. No backroom deals. No lies. No sabotage. His gaze hardened. If I lose honestly. Lila felt pride swell in her chest. Miranda hesitated, realizing she was being cornered. One of the board members cleared his throat. Miranda, he is right. We call the vote tomorrow. No more games. Miranda's jaw tightened. And for the first time tonight, she looked uncertain. Evan reached for Lila's hand, his fingers threading through hers with quiet certainty. This is not over, he whispered. But tonight, we won. And the way he looked at her made Lila realize something terrifying and beautiful. He was not talking about the boardroom. The voting chamber was nothing like the golden ballroom from the night before. It was colder, quieter, lit by pale morning light flooding in through tall windows. The long wooden table seemed carved from the same tension that filled the room. Lila sat beside Evan, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Today was the day Miranda tried to take everything from him. But she was no longer facing him alone. Board members filed in one by one, avoiding eye contact with each other, all of them aware of the storm waiting in this room. Miranda entered last, her expression smoothed into deceptive calm, her eyes glinting with the confidence of someone convinced she had already won. She took her seat, offering Evan a thin smile. "Shall we begin?" Evan did not speak immediately. Instead, he reached beneath the table, found Lila's hand, and squeezed it once. It was a subtle gesture, but it grounded her in a way nothing else could. The chairperson cleared her throat. "We are here to vote on the motion brought by Miss Miranda Hale regarding Mr. Evan Wolf's leadership and fitness to remain as chair." Miranda folded her hands. "Thank you. I will keep this brief. Last night showed us that Mr. Wolf has allowed personal distractions to influence professional decisions. A fake engagement designed to sway sympathy is not leadership. It is manipulation, and it jeopardizes our company." Lila felt her jaw tighten. Evan remained silent, letting Miranda talk. "Therefore," Miranda continued, "I call for his removal." Effective immediately, the room shifted with nervous murmurs. The chairperson turned. "Mr. Wolf, do you wish to respond?" Evan stood slowly. His presence filled the room, but not in the cold, detached way Lila had seen before. There was something deeply human in his expression today. "Yes," he said. "I do." The room stilled. "First," Evan began, "I did not stage anything last night. I did not orchestrate emotions, nor did I select someone to manipulate investors. I asked Lila Hart to accompany me because I needed someone honest in a room full of hidden agendas." He paused, letting that land. Miranda let out a quiet scoff, but the board members did not join her. Evan continued, "I have made mistakes in my career, but deception is not one of them. What happened last night was not manipulation. It was transparency, something this board could use more of." A faint murmur moved through the table. Evan looked at each person in the room before finishing. "If I lose my chair today, I lose it knowing I stood for honesty. Something Miranda Hale cannot claim. I welcome your vote." He sat back down. The silence that followed was thick. The chairperson spoke again. "We will now proceed to the vote." Miranda raised her hand immediately. "Remove." Then another board member raised his hand. "Retain." A third paused, looked between Miranda and Evan, then raised his hand. "Retain." Miranda's expression cracked. Two more raised their hands. "Retain." One more. "Retain." Miranda's breath hitched, her hand curling on the table. By the time the seventh vote was cast, the room tilted decisively. "Retain." It was over. The chairperson closed the binder. "The motion fails. Mr. Wolf remains as chair." Relief surged through the room like a released breath. Lila felt her eyes sting, her body trembling with the overwhelming wave of victory. Evan exhaled slowly, closing his eyes for a brief second before turning toward her. Miranda stood abruptly, fury twisting her face. "You have no idea what you have just done," she spat. Evan met her rage with calm. "I know exactly what I have done. I protected what matters." Miranda stormed out, slamming the door behind her. As soon as it clicked shut, Lila turned to Evan, her voice breathless. "You won." "We won," he corrected, his voice low, warm. "Because you were brave enough to stand beside me." Before she could speak again, he reached into his inside pocket and placed something gently on the table in front of her. A small velvet box. Her breath caught. "Evan," he opened it slowly. But instead of a diamond ring, inside was a simple silver key. Lila looked up in confusion. Evan's voice softened. "This is not a proposal," he said. "Not yet. This is something else." He took the key from the box and placed it in her palm, closing her fingers around it. "It is the key to the new bakery space I bought last night. A place where your bakery can grow. A place that is yours, not rented, not borrowed." Lila gasped, her heart twisting. "But why?" "Because," he said, his voice catching just slightly, "you gave me strength when I had none. And I want to give you something that cannot be taken away." Tears filled her eyes. "Evan, I do not know what to say." He took her other hand gently. "Say you will stay. Not as my fiancée for a contract, but as someone I want a real future with." For a beat, the world fell away. She saw the man behind the suit, the armor, the reputation. A man who had let her in. A man she had begun to care for long before she admitted it to herself. She squeezed his hand. I will stay. Relief and something deeper flickered across his face. He lifted her hand to his lips, brushing a soft kiss across her fingers. Then this, he said, is our new beginning. And in that moment, Lila realized something with absolute clarity. Their story had never been fake. Not even for a second.